Hey guys, First Regardsman here, and today I'll be talking about the greatest debate in Space Marine 2's history. What type of defense is best for melee weapons, block, fencing, or even balance? Now, ever since patch 6.0, block and fencing have been in mortal combat with each other. Some people swear that fencing is better, they say it's easier to use, which it definitely is, and some people say block is just the best type in this game, period. And I do want to say, before I even get to like the full conversation for this, that fencing and block do not outperform each other in 100% of scenarios. There are times where perfect parries can be better, and there are times where block can be better for its armor regen and stagger. But when we're talking about what is best in a video game, we aren't talking about playstyles, because I see this come up a lot. I see people say like, oh, the best weapon type is the one that you enjoy playing, it's the one about your playstyle, but it's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about the most effective tactic available, or what people call meta. And really all that means is, what is the best weapon type when all other factors are equalized, like player skill, input lag, whatever it may be, and we just throw people into a vacuum with that, and we give them the same tools, and we try to find out which one performs the best. And overall in Space Marine 2, block performs the best in the majority of situations, mainly because its stat spreads are just significantly better than fencing weapons, because fencing weapons for the majority are just a giant parry stick in this game. They're pretty much only used for parrying. Their actual melee attacks are garbage, and that's just not very good, especially if you're trying to push the hardest content in this game, which is why block weapons are used in the hardest content in the game overall. Now, people mention all the time that fencing is safer, and that is true for things like Minoris. It's not that block weapons struggle significantly with Minoris. Some people do oversell that, but they are definitely worse for Minoris than the fencing weapons are. But I just want to say that when it comes to gun strikes and ease of use, fencing is better for newer players, because a 40 frame parry window at 60 FPS, which is what this has, is enormous. Like, my grandpa could do that. So it is very, very forgiving, very strong for that reason for a lot of players, because block is harder to use, like straight up, because you don't actually get like a stagger off of the parry, you get a stagger off of your actual attack. So block requires you to actually know the attack strings of the enemies and all the movesets of your weapon, so you can properly set up gun strikes on your own and stuff like that, on top of knowing the perfect dodge timings. And that is just blatantly harder than a fencing weapon will be, which is why the majority of players prefer fencing, because it's just easier. A lot of players just want an ease of use item, and they aren't trying to like push their skill level in this game, and that's totally fine. When we're talking about like what is strongest, we're just trying to say that the block weapons perform the best in the majority of the scenarios in this game, mainly because getting armor regen off of 2 adrenaline surges versus Extremis, Terminus, and even Majoris is just more valuable than getting gun strikes that frame lock you, because gun strikes in this game can animation lock you, gun strikes can bug out and just get eaten into the void. Gun strikes are not as valuable as like the hardest level of siege. Like in the hard siege levels of like wave 30 plus, you will take so much damage to your HP that trying to get your CHP back from a gun strike can actually just get you killed, and getting armor back on like an actual hit is just better, because armor actually becomes more valuable in the higher levels of siege like wave 30 plus than your HP does, because armor has damage caps in this game versus both ranged and melee attacks. Any melee attack in Space Marine 2 that hits you, if you have any amount of armor remaining whatsoever, will make you take 0 damage regardless of whether or not it's a boss, Extremis, or Majoris, and that is just invaluable compared to like having a higher HP or CHP regen. Now, I do want to say that for fencing weapons, things like the Power Sword are very strong, because the fencing Power Sword stat spread is incredible, and for stuff like armor reinforcement, non-finisher gun strikes restore 1 armor segment, this is a very strong perk combo, and still very, very meta, and still very, very effective. It's more like those use cases where fencing can outperform block, especially versus things like lictors at times, because lictors are pretty obnoxious, have to like dance around, and if you're using like a power fist, they're very annoying to get. The block power fist is probably the overall hardest to use in the whole game, simply because it is so slow. But things like the Artificer Chainsword are incredibly easy to use on block. It has an incredible speed, and also the speed of the block variants of weapons like this simply allows you to pull off things like Swift Recovery, which is heavy attacks restore 100% more contested health, applies to the following attacks: Quick Punch, Front Kick, Shoulder Bash, Stomp, and being able to get your contested health back that much faster because of the speed here to get your heavy attacks off is just very, very valuable, especially for things like the tactical. And same thing here with like a block knife, where the block knife has such a fast speed on top of such a tremendous damage that for a sniper, this is just the best weapon type for him. Now, where does block actually falter compared to fencing? Well, it can be harder to get back your CHP at times, especially if you're new to using block, because the way that block works is that you actually have to just perfect dodge to get your gun strikes off, and gun strikes are like the best way to get your CHP back against a lot of enemies. So say like a scenario in this game that happens quite often is that you'll get smacked by a Terminator, or you're trying to parry a guy and you miss a dodge, you miss a parry for whatever reason. They smack you in the face, you take a bunch of HP, you have contested HP now, and if you had like a fencing weapon and you parry them again, you could get a gun strike and get your CHP back. With block, you're kind of forced to just like play around a perfect dodge or something. So it is certainly harder, and that's probably like one of the worst case scenarios for a block weapon in this game, and like the main problem with it. But overall, it's just more effective than the fencing weapons are when you actually have the skill cap to use them, because they are just better weapons for the content in this game. And that's why block weapons are used at the highest level of content across the board for True Solo Absolute. The highest waves of Siege ever in both True Solo and in groups have all been pushed using block weapons, because block just performs better at those levels when all the players know what they're doing. But if you're just trying to play the game and trying to like use the most effective tactic available for you, the player, and then when you're starting out, fencing is more forgiving, and it's definitely the reason it is preferred the most in this game. Hopefully that makes sense. And I do want to show how to actually use these in game, because some people seem to not know that like block weapons are really not that bad versus Minoris at all when you take something like a block Artificer Chainsword. So I kind of want to show you guys how to actually fight Minoris with these weapons in the first place, because I get this question asked to me all the time. Alright, here we are in the training arena with just an Artificer block Chainsword, because this is one of the most popular weapons in the game to block in the first place. So now we just have Hormagaunts here, which is, a pretty obnoxious Minoris enemy to fight for a lot of people. I just want to say that when it comes to using your block weapon, you just have to know like what's going to set up gun strikes for you. Like that's our bash. So we're just setting that up quite easily to just blast through these guys. And if you stand still in Space Marine 2, enemies will attack you less. Like you see this, they're just kind of jumping on us. You do like the little backdash here. I should mention this as well. I know we're a little rambly here, but this is live gameplay, people. So we do a little backdash here. This will make you dodge things like that, first of all, but also make you dodge individual hits like that if you just press your dodge button for like a split second. And that is like invaluable for actually dodging enemies here in Minoris hordes. This is probably something people just aren't doing enough, is that you just have to be able to backdash. That's really all there is to it. Like that is crucial for any class in this game to properly like fence through Minoris hordes. You need to be using your backdash like that, because it does have iframes. It will go right through the Minoris enemy attacks. You can go through things like lictors. It's actually quite good for pulling off things like perfect dodges versus some enemies. And I just want to mention as well that Minoris enemies in this game will attack you less the more Majoris and Extremis and even Terminus level enemies there are in this game. This game has an attack token system, which means that there are only so many enemies that can attack you at once, and Extremis, Terminus, and Majoris are worth more for that. And Hormagaunts especially, they will just eat shit versus you if you like pop any Majoris around them at all. They'll die in 2 Synapse bursts. Very easy to clean up with any Majoris around them. Pretty much always focus Majoris. And while Majoris are attacking you, Minoris are less likely to attack you, period. And this game also operates on an input reading system, which means if you stand still, especially as like a bulwark with your shield up, you can kind of just kite the enemies very easily, and far fewer of them will actually attack you. So it's pretty easy to just manipulate the enemies in this game, and that's like one of the reasons that Minoris are really not as bad for Artificer, block Chainsword, and things like that as people think, or just block weapons in general, because we took no HP damage there. We did take more armor than you probably would like a fencing weapon, but that's just one of the downsides to block. But it's really not as big of a downside as people think, because you have to know that all of your lunging attacks as well will set up things like gun strikes when like enemies are low HP enough, or versus Hormagaunts and stuff. Not only the shields and cores, but you can also perfect block these guys too and get your charges up. So once you actually learn timings and things like that, it's quite easy. Hopefully this video helped you guys understand how to perfect dodge a little bit better versus Minoris, and just why fencing and block are the 2 strongest types in this game, because I do want to say fencing is still strong, and if you like fencing weapons, you can definitely use them. No one's saying that you have to use block. No one's saying like you have to use the most powerful tactic available, or like learn a harder type of play style if you prefer fencing. That's totally up to you. I'm just trying to talk about which type is better overall in this game, and why, because people ask this question all the time. So if you like content like this, thanks for watching, guys, and as always, subscribe for more if you like it, and take it easy. Peace.